Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Samantha and you just tuned into On the Hill, where we empower women to honor God with their body while showing up confidently in all areas of their lives. So you guys can always expect videos from faith, family to lifestyle, and today I have sort of a faith slash, I don't know what kind of video it is, but today I am going to share with you guys my singleness story. Many of you know that I am married, and I've been married for about 4 years now, a little bit over 4 years, and we have a son named Judah. And I kind of get this question a lot, what was my journey throughout singleness? Did I enjoy singleness? Was it a struggle? Just a lot of people asking questions, a lot of women normally. And so I wanted to be able to sit down and sort of share that story and just that experience with you guys, and hopefully encourage you throughout your singleness season. I know that right now a lot of people are courting, a lot of people are getting engaged, and a lot of people are getting married, and it's so easy to look at that and feel like, okay, when is it going to be my turn? God, I've been serving you, I'm serving in ministry, I'm serving people, and yet God, like, when is it going to be my turn? I'm tired of being single. I'm tired of seeing other people be happy, and yet I'm still struggling. And I guess the first thing I want to say in regard to that is I want to encourage you that those feelings are normal. I know a lot of times we have those feelings and we kind of beat ourselves up about it, and we feel really condemned, or we condemn ourselves, honestly. And I'm not saying that they're not thoughts and feelings that we need to take captive and we need to, give back to God. And, I'm not saying that we don't need to sort of restructure the way that we are thinking, and we don't need to deal with those feelings. But I want you to know that it is normal, right? Like, I want to validate the thoughts of, when is it going to be my turn? I remember when I was single. So I was born and raised in the church, and I grew up, watching a lot of reality TV shows, a lot of movies that had romance and that had sex, and all of these things that would lead me to fantasizing a lot of times about, relationships and what, my courtship, or at that time I wasn't really thinking about courtship, right? Like, the idea of courtship, dating with purpose wasn't something that I even knew what it meant, right? Like, I just knew that I wanted to date, I wanted to have a companion, I wanted to have a boyfriend, I wanted to be able to travel with him. And so, I grew up really fantasizing about that a lot. And a lot of it had to do with what I was feeding myself. So I was watching a lot of TV shows. I was listening to a lot of music that really, honestly, it didn't help, right? Like, it continued to sow those seeds of feeling lonely and wanting someone, needing someone, or feeling as though I needed someone. And so I guess that's or not the first thing I want to say, but in regard to that, I want you all to be mindful of, in this season, what am I feeding myself? Even if all of my friends are talking about relationships, and they're talking about courtship, and they're talking about marriage, I would challenge you to challenge those conversations and to kind of redirect those conversations. And as the Lord begins to deal with you and prayerfully grows you to the place where you are content in your singleness, I would challenge you to be the one that kind of speaks up in those conversations and redirects those conversations to something that is more fruitful in this season for you. There's nothing wrong with wanting a relationship. There's nothing wrong with wanting marriage, but everything has its place. Everything has its season. And so even something that's good out of season can be bad for you. And so you have to really, I feel like I'm kind of all over the place, but you have to be able to really seek God and say, like, okay, God, what season am I in right now? And is it time for a relationship? And if it's not time for a relationship, then I talked to a sister one day, and I, kind of encouraged her, when it comes to this season or any season that you're in, whatever it is that you are in need of, create a space, create an atmosphere where you are constantly being fed what you need to be fed in that season, right? So if I'm in a season of singleness, and I'm really seeking the Lord with my whole heart, and I'm really trying to focus on Him and what He has for me, then, right now it's not a time to be thinking about courtship and relationships. And so what I need to surround myself with, what I need to really fill my atmosphere of, is things that are going to help me stay focused in the season that I'm in. And so I don't need to be listening to love music. I don't need to be watching TV shows that are full of romance and relationships. And I even need to, not necessarily saying you need to change your friends. I'm not telling you to drop all of your friends, right? But I need to change the conversations that I'm having. And so having that conversation with friends and saying like, hey, this is the season that I'm in right now. And anything that I invite into my atmosphere, I invite into my environment, I want it to be conducive of the season that I'm in. And so that means that right now I can't really have those conversations, right? Like I don't need to participate in those conversations. And so I kind of just wanted to throw that out there and just for you to think about, what season am I in right now? It doesn't mean that marriage isn't coming. It doesn't mean that courtship isn't coming, but where am I right now? And where I am right now, I need to be intentional about creating an atmosphere and creating an environment that is going to help me succeed in this season that I am in right now. So kind of just going back to just my own story. So like I said, I grew up, obviously not knowing what I just shared with you. I didn't know that what I fed myself is what's going to come out. And so I continued to feed myself of those things. And, growing up, I really couldn't have a boyfriend. My mom didn't really allow me to have a boyfriend, but, you kind of have your little crushes here and there. You have your little boyfriends here and there in elementary school. Nothing ever really serious though. And I remember probably around high school, I got into what I would consider like my first real relationship, my first real boyfriend. And it just wasn't good. It was really toxic. It wasn't toxic in a sense that like he was abusive or anything like that. But at this point, I had rededicated my life to Christ. And so I was really trying to walk with God. I rededicated my life to Christ in 8th grade. So going into high school, I was really alone. I didn't have a lot of friends. I was cool with a lot of people, but I didn't have anybody that I was like, I didn't have like a best friend, And so it was a really lonely season for me. I longed for it. I longed for friends. I longed for companionship, but it was just something that I didn't have. And in hindsight, I realized that season was the closest I had ever been to God. Like the closest, where I had no one else, where I was in this season of, or in this period of isolation. It was the closest, right? Like this is the time where I was like waking up. Mind you, this is high school, y'all. I was like waking up every morning to spend time with the Lord. And if I didn't wake up in the morning to spend time with him, the first thing I did when I got home from school was spend time with the Lord. Like no TV, no going outside. Like I had to spend time with God. I was like fasting 2 days a week. Like I literally was walking with the Lord. I was so close to him at that time. And I just struggled. I really struggled because part of me enjoyed being close with the Lord. And then the other half of me just wanted friends. I wanted community, and I didn't have that. I was in a small church at the time, and we had a youth ministry, but it wasn't like thriving quite yet. And there was a bit of an age difference with me and some of the other youth. And so, it was just something I struggled with at that time. And so I got into my first real relationship probably around, I think I was in like 10th grade or something like that, maybe 11th grade. And it was this guy I met at school. And I was one of those girls that wanted like a Christian bad boy. I don't know if anybody else struggles with that, but like I so badly wanted like a Christian, like I wanted him to be a Christian, but I wanted him to have like, like a street background, and I don't know why. I wanted him to be a thug at heart, right? And praise God, if you look at my husband, the Lord will give you the desires of your heart, because if you know my husband, then he's come from that background and he's in Christ now, but he still has a little bit of, some street tendencies here and there. So God will give you the desires of your heart. But anyways, at that time, he just wasn't good for me. I'm not gonna lie, he wasn't good for me. And I remember even at that time, I was trying to like open up to my mom, and I told her about him, and she told me she didn't want me in a relationship with him. And I still did it like behind her back. And I don't even know if I ever repented for that. But anyways, I did it behind her back. And so I got into this relationship with this guy, and it started off okay, right? Like he knew I was a Christian. He knew my stance. He knew that I wasn't trying to have sex until I was married. And I'm about to be like super transparent and honest with you guys. But he knew, just he knew my stance, and so he honored that. Like, he never tried to like force himself on me or pressure me in any way. And so we continued to grow in friendship. I'm trying to remember, but we continued to grow in friendship, got into a relationship. And I remember the Lord would try to help me. Like, there were times where the Lord would, because I knew that I didn't need to be in that relationship. Like, I understood the concept of being unequally yoked. Like, at this age, I knew what unequally yoked meant. And I knew that we were unequally yoked. I knew that I was a believer and he wasn't. And I had this mindset that I could save him. I had this mindset that I could save him. I had this mindset that God was going to use me to bring him to Christ, right? Don't we all believe that at some point? And so I continued to stay in this relationship, and I continued to pray for him, believing that God was going to use me. And the thing about being in a relationship with an unbeliever is that someone is going to influence someone, right? Like, either we're going to go in that direction as a believer, like we'll go into the direction of the world, or we will have some sort of influence that will bring the world to us, right? And I think a lot of us are ignorant to think that we're able to have this amazing influence on people. And let me be clear when I say that. So we can have influence on people, right? Like, we can influence them to come to church. We can influence them to pray more and to, to come to God. I'm not saying that we can't have any kind of influence, but especially for me as a young girl who was really new in the faith, though I had been born and raised in the church, I really, I was really just starting over, honestly. Like, growing up, I only went to church because I had to. I was at the point now where I was going to church because I wanted to, and I wanted to know God for myself. So this was really still new for me in an aspect. And long story short, I thought I could bring him to Christ, and it didn't happen. Slowly but surely, I started to compromise. So I started to listen to music that he was listening to. I started falling into places of lust. And initially, it only started out with just kissing, and then eventually it, spiraled into something else. And the biggest thing for me, in my singleness, I said, okay, God, at this time I was still a virgin. So I was just like, okay, God, I want to wait until I'm married to have sex. And unfortunately, that did not happen. And I won't even lie. I remember it was so devastating, and not devastating because like he did anything to me. Like, I knew what I was doing. I would say part of me wanted that. At that point, I'd always struggled with lust growing up. I had been exposed to pornography at a young age. And so the seed was always there. And then when you put that with wanting companionship and feeling lonely and wanting someone to fill that void that only God can fill, it's a recipe for a disaster. And so I ended up losing my virginity. And I remember, like I said, I remember when it happened. And I remember going home and like crying and like praying and asking God to forgive me, and just like wanting to get back right with God. And I think that lasted for a little bit, like maybe like a week or so, but then eventually like I found myself continuing to have sex, right? And it was a horrible it's horrible, because at this point I had grew so connected to this boy, like so connected to him. And I couldn't let go. I just could not let go. And I remember, there were even points where like God would separate us for a season. Like he would separate us, and some way, somehow we would get reconnected. And I remember even using the excuse like, oh, well, maybe we're getting reconnected. Like maybe it's God that's reconnecting us, right? Like, don't we always say that? Like, well, they, I tried to push them away and they came back around, so it must have been of God. And someone, I think it was a sermon or someone said it to me. They said, okay, well, when he calls, what do you do? And I said, well, I answer the phone. And they said, okay, then it's not God, it's you. You answered the phone, right? And so, like I said, God tried to help me several times, and I just kept joining back in this relationship with him. And I'll be honest. There was even a season where I went to the doctor and I found out that I had an STD from him. And you would think that that would give me the strength to let go, but it didn't, right? Like, I still went back. And I remember around this time, I suspected that he was cheating on me, and he would not be honest with me. Like, he just would not tell me. And like, I was just foolish. Like, I just could not let go of this boy. And so I remember saying a prayer, and I said, God, I need you to help me. I need him. By this time, this had been years. So this is like from 10th grade to like 12th grade, past 12th grade, I think. I think I had graduated by this point. So it was a few years of like in and out of this relationship, and, you know, sneaking behind my mom's back, honestly. And I remember saying a prayer, and I asked God, I said, God, I need you to make him do something so bad that I won't go back anymore. And I will never forget, it was one day I was on my way to work, and one of our mutual friends called me, and she was like, hey, Sam. She called me Mama Sam at this point, because I was like the mama, the grandma, right? And she was like, hey, Mama Sam. And she was like, let me ask you a question. And she, you know, she called this person best friend. And she said, are you and best friend like talking or dating or anything? And at this point, I'm so dumb. At this point, this boy was in jail. He was in jail, and I was supporting him. I don't know what I called myself trying to do support. I'm like 18, 19 trying to support a boy in jail. Just ridiculous. And I remember her asking me that question, and I was like, well, you know, at this point we have reconnected again. And I was like, well, we're talking, we're cool, we're chilling, like nothing, you know, serious, but I could see it going in that direction. And so she was just like, well, I just found out that he has a baby on the way. And I was like, and my dumb self, I'm making a joke out of it. I'm like, girl, what are you talking about? I'm not pregnant. Like, as if she's talking about me, right? And she was like, no, not you. And she was like, he has a baby on the way. He got another girl pregnant. And so I'm like, okay, like, I don't talk to this boy. I talked to him yesterday, actually. I just put $20 on his account at the jail. Like, he didn't tell me anything about getting someone pregnant. And she was just like, well, the worst part about it is, she said, I think this was like August, whatever year this was, it was like August. She said the baby is due, I can't remember, but I think the baby was like due in September, October. Either way, this girl was in her last trimester about to have his baby, and he still had not told me. And when I tell you, y'all, I was like, like what? And I was devastated. I was devastated. And I remember calling one of my friends at the time, and she said to me, she said, Sam, you did say that prayer. You did ask the Lord to help you get out of this relationship. And I remember, like, he called me and I approached him about it. This boy still lied. He still lied and was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a baby on the way. Like, he was not honest about it. And of course, I found out that he was lying. He did have a baby on the way. And it was a disaster. And it didn't take me long to get over that, because at that point, there was no turning back for me. And so God did what I asked him to do. He helped me get out of that relationship. And I remember around this time, I was still searching, right? I was still searching. So I had, a few encounters with guys, and I thank God for his mercy and his grace, because I wasn't sleeping around with like every boy that, walks past me. But I had a few encounters. I remember having sex with, I would say like at least like 3 guys around that time. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't use protection every time. And the fact that God spared my life to where, I'm about to cry, because that is crazy, y'all. Like, I was not even using protection. And it could have been something serious. Like, I could have contracted HIV. I could have, contracted. At that point, I had already gotten a STD, right? So I was already being dumb by continuing to sleep with guys and not use protection at least. But God was so merciful. Like, I didn't contract any more STDs. I never got pregnant. Like, I could have gotten pregnant, y'all. I could have gotten pregnant. And that's a lot. Actually, I think I slept with like 4 guys around that time. And I remember even one of the guys, I thought I got pregnant at one point, and I remember going to get like a morning after pill. And I was just dumb. I don't know what I was doing. I wasn't really thinking. I wasn't really using my head. I got a morning after pill a few times, like 2 or 3 times, honestly. And God is good, y'all. God is so good. And he's merciful, like, seriously. And I think when people say like, oh, Samantha, you're too deep, you're doing too much. Like, if you knew the things that I did and what God saved me from, I can't do too much. Like, because I was doing too much. And he was merciful in those moments where I was doing too much. And so now, like, y'all, I owe him my life. Like, I don't care what anyone says. You could say I'm doing too much. I owe him my life, seriously. And so, I don't know. I feel like this is getting long, but, so yeah, I slept around with a few guys then. And, I remember even getting into another relationship, and at this point I was dating a youth pastor. So I was just like, okay, this is it. Like, I made it. Like, I found the man of God found me. Like, this is it. And let me just put this out there. Just because they are Christian does not mean that they are your husband. It does not. Every Christian man is not your husband. You can be believers and still be unequally yoked, right? If you're not in the same place spiritually, if you're not going to the same place. So I had this notion that every Christian guy I met meant that they were going to be my husband. And so I got into this relationship. He was a youth pastor, and I was, like I said, I had a serious issue with lust, and we didn't like have sex or anything like that, thank God, but we definitely, we got close. We got as close to the fire as we could without getting burned. I will say that. And it was just bad. And thank God he was hearing from God, because I wasn't. Thank God he was hearing from God, and he was able to tell me, like, hey, you know, like, I like you and I want to be with you, but God has not given me the okay. Though we've moved forward on our own, God has not given me the okay to be with you. And so I think we need to take a break. I think we need to take some time, and we need to seek God and fast. And we did. And I remember the Lord telling me no. And I think at that point, I can't remember if God told him no either, if he just still hadn't gotten a yes or a no, but I knew I had heard what I needed to hear, and it was no. And so we got out of that relationship. And so I thank God that he was hearing from God, because I surely wasn't. And by this point, like, I had rededicated my life back to God. So like I said, I gave my life to God in 8th grade, but then I kind of fell off and was in and out of these relationships, and then I rededicated at some point. But you know, even then, like, God was still merciful. And so I remember it was the semester before I transferred to A&T. So after high school, I did a 1.5 years of community college. I stayed home and did a 1.5 years of community college, and then I transferred to A&T. And the semester before I transferred to A&T, I had rededicated my life back to God. And so I went to A&T, and I remember even being there, and that was when the Lord really began to, like, demolished my walk with him. Like, I thought I was doing something before, but what I was really doing was more so church. And though I had a relationship with God, because as I said, there was a period in time where I was the closest to him that I'd ever been. This was the period where God really took me deeper, where he helped me to see, like, it's more than just church, Samantha. This is, you know, you can't continue to do what you want to do and then repent on Sunday morning and then go back to your sin, you know, on Monday. Like, it doesn't work like that. Either you're going to be in or you're going to be out. Either you're going to be cold or you're going to be hot. There's no lukewarm. There's no middle when it comes to serving me. And so I had gotten really serious with my walk with God. I got connected to a campus ministry at A&T. Shout out to VCF. And I thank God for that ministry, because the Lord really used those people in that community to help prune me and to show me my mess. Like, they showed me my mess. And I thank God for that. And so even in that season, I still struggled with being single. I really did. I had gotten to the point where I realized, I remember, like, being in my room one day, and I remember, like, bawling, crying because I was single. Like, because I so badly wanted a relationship. I wanted a husband. And I remember my roommate was looking at me like, girl, you are like a sophomore in college. Like, it's okay. Like, she thought I was probably crazy. And I was seriously crazy and out of my mind. And it's just crazy. Lord have mercy. But I was like bawling, crying. And I remember I had to be honest with God. I think it was after my sophomore year, I went home for summer break, and I sat before the Lord and I was honest with him. And I said, God, you should be enough for me, but you're not. Like, I'm not satisfied with just you. Like, you're not enough for me, but I need you to be. And so I was like, I need you to help me. I'm tired of being this way. I'm tired of having this deep longing for a guy or a man. Like, what is wrong with me? Like, I need you to help me. And I remember like within a few weeks to a month, like it wasn't long. I don't know what it was, but it was like literally something broke. And I don't know if it was just that moment of honesty and transparency with the Lord. Like sometimes we're afraid to be honest and transparent with God. And he already knows, but he's just waiting for you to be upfront and real with him, you know? And I don't know if that's what it was, but I remember it was like something just switched for me. And I remember I got to the point where I was like enjoying my singleness, y'all. Like I was going on a date with God. Like we would go to the Waffle House. I would bring my Bible and like my book and my journal. This was a time where I was like a little walking evangelist. Like every person I spoke to, I had to tell them about Jesus. Like I was like on fire for him. Like I was overwhelmed by him. And I remember saying to God, I said, God, if you don't send me my husband, like I'm good. And I meant it. Like I wasn't saying it just because it sounded good, or like I meant that in my heart. Like if he didn't give me a husband at that point, I was like, I'm good. Like you are enough for me. I was satisfied. Like I was traveling. I was living my life. I don't want to say my best life, but I was living my best life, y'all. Like for real. Like I was having a good time with just me and Jesus. I didn't even care about a relationship anymore. And honestly, it's so funny because that same summer when I was in prayer was when the Lord told me that going back to school that year, I was going to meet my husband. And I remember breaking down and crying. And I was mad because I was like, God, I'm finally at the place where I'm okay with just you alone. And now you want to send me someone? I don't want anybody. Like, I just want you. Like, and I started to get afraid because I was like, I don't want anyone to take your place. Like, I'm finally at this place where I'm one with you and I'm good. Like, I don't want anybody. And, I mean, you know, at the same time, I was like, you know, okay, my man of God coming like, hey, you know, but at the same time, I was like, God, I'm good with just you alone. Like, I was really good. And, it was an adventure. But anyways, I remember just taking that summer to really continue to spend time with God. And I began to pray for whoever that person was. I didn't know who they were going to be, but I began to pray for that person. And, at the same time, still enjoying my singleness. And so that's another thing I just want to encourage you guys is that if you are in a season of singleness and you're having a hard time with being single, be honest with God. Like, tell him, like, I'm single. I'm tired of being single. I don't want to be single no more. But I need you to help me in this season, God, to be at the point where I'm okay with you, where you are enough for me. And I would say maximize your singleness, y'all. Like, enjoy it, travel, like have fun, go on dates, like do girls' nights, do whatever it is that you can do, because once you're married, you could still do those things, but it's different, right? Like I can't just get up and go travel and do what I want to do now. Like I got to talk to my husband. I got to see if we have the finances. Now I have a child, so it's like, who's going to watch the child? I got to make sure I pump enough milk for my child. Like it's a whole different ball game, and it's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is maximize the season that you're in while you have the chance. Don't be in such a rush to get to the next season. It'll come. It'll be here, but enjoy where you are now. Enjoy uninterrupted quiet time. Like enjoy being able to sit before God and take your time throughout the day and not have to worry about cleaning up after nobody, you know, cooking for nobody. Like, listen, enjoy the time while you have it. And I did. I got to that place where I began to enjoy my singleness, and I enjoyed that season with the Lord. And, you know, the next semester I ended up meeting my husband. I did. And that's a whole nother video and a whole nother story. But I just want to encourage you guys in that. I hope that this level of transparency and honesty really speaks to you guys to realize, like, honestly, it's not worth it. Like all of the pain, all of the hurt that I put myself through, like not God, Samantha did that. I did that to myself. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. And I thank God for his mercy. I thank God for his grace. But I didn't have to go through the things that I went through. And there's so many things that could have come from that. You know, I could have gotten an STD that wasn't curable. I could have impacted my son. It could have impacted me having children, you know, and it didn't. And so I'm thankful to God. Like I'm also sharing this as a from a place of victory, that like I'm so thankful to God for his mercy and his grace, and that even when we're out of line and when we're out of pocket, he's so merciful to bring us back into place, and he covers us even when we don't deserve his covering. And so yeah, I pray that this blesses you guys, and that it's some encouragement to those that are in their singleness, but to also realize that, you know, the time will come. It will come. Your time will come. He's coming. But while you have a chance, enjoy where you are, and maximize this time. And yeah, that's it. But I hope you guys have an awesome day. Subscribe if you have not subscribed already, and click the bell. That way you get notifications anytime I post a new video. Thank you guys. Bye.